Well, here we have a Slate clock. It's a single train timepiece. It's pretty grotty, poor condition, stained on the top. One of the columns here is off, but we've got it set aside. The top section is loose. It will move. You can see it. It's not firm. And now I'm going to start work on it. I'll take this part out first. The Now I can take this off and have a first look at it. You can see that it's very simple, but it's dirty. But we've got the original pendulum, which again is pretty grotty, but it's got the same number on, tallies through with that number. So there are the tally numbers, which is nice, and the original key too. It'll need cleaning up, but that's going to be relatively straightforward, I think. Looking at it, everything's there and in pretty good condition. Now I've got the time movement here for the clock that I've been polishing up and cleaning the case. What I'm going to do is to wire wool all the parts, and then, having cleaned them up to a certain reasonable level, I will then polish them with polish and inspect the spring here, inspect the pivots on all the parts, and then reassemble them. Just to illustrate what we've got to deal with here, this is the time arbor for regulating the time, and you can see it's rusty. It's in the most appalling state. It's reasonable after 100 years or so. That's what happens, and it's really very bad. So that needs wire wool to get that off. Whereas if it was covered in oil, which they aren't, here we are. This is the pallet arbor that I was talking about before. This has got very nice little pallets there, which are curved. Semicircular. It's very dirty. And the crutch is awfully grubby, and so is the foot. So they'll be cleaned up. And the pendulum is somewhat similar. You can see how dirty that is. So it needs to be the barrel for the spring is very dull and not at all happy. The plates are remarkable because they're only small plates, but I haven't measured them, but they must be 2 millimeters, maybe more thick. I think this is quite an old clock, in as much that it's only a timepiece. In other words, it doesn't have the complications of having a striking mechanism, which makes it a simpler clock. And if it's a simpler clock, then I rather feel that it's probably a little less expensive than one which chimes and so appeal to more people. But having said that, it's beautifully made, so it must have been quite expensive anyway. And probably at that particular time in history, shall we say in the 1880s and on, timepieces were very valuable because they were the only way that you could register time, and so they were for the select few who could afford them. Anyway, now we're going to start cleaning up the parts. I'm going to go ahead with them. First, scrubbing them with soapy water, and then after that I'll clean them with fresh water, and finally I'll set them aside after I've rubbed them, sprayed them with distilled water, because the water that you get in London has got impurities in it which stain the brass and the movements parts. So this is the procedure that I will go through, and for instance I'll take this wheel out, I'll clean that in a similar way with wire wool. And get it cleaned up with when that looks better already, because the steel is now clean on this and shiny. That's pretty good for a starter, and then when I've polished it, it'll be even better. It's in beautiful condition. The teeth are all very clean and clear cut. They're not worn. So I'm going to carry on like that, get these done, and I'll come back later on. Right, now some of these pieces I'm going to polish just simply because they've got such a nice finish on them that we don't want to spoil it by using wire wool on them. Well, making progress. The plates, so they've been polished up and cleaned, both inside and out. That's that one. And here we've got the back plate, looking very nice. Well, that's the inside of it. The spring barrel, there we are, a bit better. The suspension spring and cock for the back, that's cleaned up a bit. This one I'm particularly pleased with. That, if you recall, was pretty awful before, but now it's quite sparkly, and before it was black it looked like possibly steel, but now it's actually brass, and the pallets themselves are steel. So that's nice. I'm pleased about that. And this one, if you recall, was nothing but rust, and now it's gleaming good and so much better. And the pendulum, well, the pendulum's a pendulum. That's now no, it would please to go on the back of the clock and look fantastic. So now we've got the rest to do, and I'll come back when that's done.